Hey guys, it's Sophie with Kamikaze Kiwi, and let's take 5 to talk about The Sound of Music. Now, The Sound of Music is probably one of my favorite movies. I'm specifically talking about the one with Julie Andrews. And the reason why I use the word movie and not musical is because, in fact, it's not a musical. See, a musical is, it can be a play. It can be a movie. It can be really anything where the plot is primarily moved forward through music and dance. Unlike an opera is where the plot is moved only through music, only through singing. And what I mean by that is, for instance, Phantom of the Opera is not an opera, it's a musical. It's primarily pushed through with music and dance, but there is dialogue. However, they do have examples of operas in Phantom of the Opera because it takes place in an opera house. And you can see that all throughout where he actually composes an opera, the Phantom does, and it's all singing. So it's the same thing, except for a musical is just the part that is sung. Now, the reason why Sound of Music is not a musical is actually because The Sound of Music, if you take out every singing part, still makes sense. In fact, the music is not essential to the plot. The music enhances the plot, does not advance the plot. So now, you'll say, no, if you take out the music, you'll be missing stuff. It might affect the quality of the movie, or in this case, it would turn into a play if it doesn't have music, or stage show, however you want to call it. Yes, it would affect the quality, but it doesn't affect the plot. In fact, the only song in The Sound of Music that actually shows progression of the plot is the song, the yodel, 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 hee-hoo, because it's the only time that you see the father, getting along with his kids, starting to gradually appreciate Maria, and so on and so forth, the captain, as it were. That, of course, could easily be replaced with dialogue or a slightly extended scene in the ballroom. Now, the reason why this is important as for what is a musical and what isn't a musical, now, I understand, too, that some of you might be arguing, on the definition of musical, or at least considering what it is. I tend to go by the very traditional view of what a musical is, which is the plot being primarily advanced through music and dance. Some people don't see that anymore, or don't think that anymore, don't say that anymore. They think that there's a more modern view for it, and that's whenever I want to push into modern musicals and how technically the best example we have of a modern musical where it is advanced almost solely through music is South Park, Better, Longer, Uncut. If you look at that movie, if you take out the music, if you take out all the musical numbers, all the dancing, everything else, the plot doesn't advance. It makes no sense. And whenever I was really thinking about this, I was like, that's it. That is the only musical I could think of modern day that was just the essence of what a musical is. Now, there is a movie that was recently released in theaters, recently released when I'm talking about it now, whenever someone watches this, who knows when, La La Land. Now, if you haven't seen La La Land and you are a fan of musicals, or you're a fan of the chemistry that Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling have, or you're just wanting to see Ryan Gosling get back to his dance move roots, I highly suggest you go see La La Land. The thing with La La Land that's very interesting is that technically it's not a musical either. See, again, with a musical ideally being only advanced through music primarily, it doesn't do that. There is a lot of dialogue that happens within La La Land that means that it wouldn't actually be able to advance if you take it out. That being said, if you take out the songs in La La Land, the plot doesn't advance either. I would say dialogue to music is probably 60-40. But that doesn't mean that it's not a musical, because again, the idea is primarily, not solely, unless you are one of those people who think that the plot should advance almost solely through music. That's a very traditional music theory. My husband is literally has a master's in music. He is a music master. And we constantly kind of discuss this because what makes a musical now versus what made a musical whenever they were created is a little different. The creation of a musical was actually drawn from light opera. Light opera is basically, you can't handle a full opera because they are long and exhaustive and dramatic and tiring. So whenever you couldn't handle a long opera, you went to a short opera, a light opera. And then from there, even that was pretty exhausting. Italians know how to make it. There are operas from all over the world for sure, but definitely you can see some regions held on to it or more so than others. And if you couldn't handle it, you went to a light opera, and light operas made musicals, and musicals have kind of morphed into a decrepit art form compared to how they used to be. Oh, and time is up. So now that we've taken 5, I would love to hear your comments about it. Tell me what your favorite musical is. Do you think your musical is a musical? Do you think it's actually more of a movie now? Have you seen La La Land? I loved it. There's like something about like Ryan Gosling like dancing that just makes me giggle every time. And how do you feel about South Park technically being a better musical than Sound of Music? I know a lot of people hate to hear that. Let me know in the comments down below. Look around. Hopefully they'll pop up and you can see the other things that I do. And as always, I'll see you next week, and enjoy your weekend.